Okay, hi. Is this episode 7? This is episode 7. Wow. I really love the number 7. To me, I've heard it is a number of power, and my mom really loved the number 7, so I am grateful and happy to be on my 7th episode, celebrating just getting this far into this podcast. I know that, 7 episodes doesn't seem like a lot, but to me, knowing the backstory behind this, like how long I had been thinking about making this series and whether it would be an ongoing thing or just like a sort of just a project. Either way, I have really enjoyed this process. I've enjoyed all your comments about it, and I've enjoyed just sharing what's been on my heart for so many years, what's been growing, the wisdom that's growing there. I'm just ready, you know what I mean? Like I'm more open, I'm more mature, and I'm ready to share more of who I am and how I think and what's moved me and affected me through this podcast. So thank you. That is to say, thank you so much for your listening. I appreciate you. This 7th episode is on the silver lining of survival mode. And, that intro wasn't just fluff. It was sort of a precursor, like a little miniature share about just how much I went through in the decade of my 20s and beyond. And only in coming out of survival mode can I see some of the shimmers of what it has taught me. And I can't say what it's taken from me, but I can sort of say just how it's affected me. I think there is definitely one side of my experience in survival mode that I wonder how much time was lost or quote unquote wasted by just not being in position that I thought I should be in, or that I wanted to be in, that I thought I was destined for, that I thought I was designed for, maybe a position that my peers were in. And that's a rabbit hole if I wanted to go into it, and it's a dark one, and it doesn't feel good in there to compare myself to other people. Our lives are different and challenging in the ways that each of us need to grow, to face ourselves, to mature in wisdom and grace and beauty and authenticity. Like, we all are born and equipped with the things that we need, and the challenges that come are there to strengthen our will, our trust in ourselves, and our confidence. So, there's no competition on like who went through more over here or who had it easier or anything like that. Like, please, there could always be someone in the world that seems like they had it harder, and always someone who seems like they had it easier, no matter what the circumstances are. So there are many ways that I was nourished in survival mode. I mean, I made it through it. So that is saying a lot right there. I was nourished through my relationship with my sister, my sibling, who I'm just so grateful is so close, that we have such a close bond spiritually and intellectually, and also a family. I feel nourished by the experience of raising a child, helping to raise a child, my sister's child, watching her grow, watching her becoming, having that kind of love in my life definitely has been nourishing in the midst of survival mode. But I think like a big one that even made me want to do this episode on this topic is that I think survival mode actually afforded me the time to become fully myself within, without using so many external factors as a crutch for understanding what joy is and what grace is and beauty and abundance in my life. I think it would have been really easy for me in particular to gain the world and lose my soul. I mean, my soul is strong. She's very loud. She's very powerful. She's very big, but my will is also very strong. And there have been so many times that in my life that I've been in a fight between my soul and my will, even though overall, deep down, I want to live according to my soul. More than anything, I want to live according to my destiny. I'm willing to change, to grow, to release, to lift, to leap in the context of my destiny on this planet. And so I've always known that, but the world is really loud. You know, the suggestions from the world, especially for a person who, you know, didn't have the security growing up in childhood, didn't have like that sense of emotional security, or even in some cases environmental security, physical security. For me, because home and the security of home are so important to my like wellness structure, the package of my wellness, and my ability to access my creativity is tied to my sense of security. So, you know, like shifting in and out of phases of feeling secure and feeling insecure have taught me more ways to access internal security regardless of what's happening outside me. So again, it is really easy to like want to boost my confidence with a shopping trip, you know, have good feelings. That shop therapy, I definitely get that, like those good feelings, those endorphins, whatever they are, dopamine, whatever it is that happens during a shopping trip, or when I buy something that I'm excited to wear, whether it's an article of clothing or like a scent or a body adornment item. I mean, I believe in all that. I think all that is a really old, ancient tradition of humans that humans have to like adorn ourselves and to take special care of appearances in a way. But I'll just say that for me, I know that life, if it was all given to me earlier, sooner in my adulthood, I could have just been swallowed up in it and just like become addicted to it and heavily reliant on it. And that's never been a path I really wanted to take. Like, I've always really wanted to know my worth from the inside. And so life, or perhaps my perspective on life, I've chosen to live with these sort of rose-colored glasses that through challenge, I trust that the change in myself that will occur will be one that's aligned with where I want to go, who I want to become, and aligned with my destiny. So when I've gone through periods of housing insecurity, financial insecurity, job insecurity, health insecurity, and grief, which is like a kind of, I mean, I've gone through mental, I would say, like a mental state insecurity, a little bit of mental instability, I think as a result of grief, and as also a result of health insecurity, malnutrition, and malabsorption. All these things tie in together. Our experience of the body and our experiences of emotions are so intricately woven. And I see that. I watched that with my mother. You know, my mother had stage 4 breast cancer when she passed. And my experience of my mother growing up was that she really lived with a lot of rage. A lot of, you know, her own insecurities, her own like frustration about life and social climate of the U.S., being a Black woman born in the 50s who grew up in a segregated, you know, until she was 13, she grew up in segregation. And I think that, you know, that really shapes a person's perspective on society, and specifically like how safe one feels within the society they live. And, you know, and that was my mother. I'm not talking about a grandmother. There's no like removal here. But my experience of her when I was growing up was that she held a lot of emotion inside her body, and she wouldn't let it out, or she didn't have the outlets, the healthy means of communicating what her frustrations were, her pains, her angers. And this may be a new concept for listeners. I'm never sure like how people come to listening to like psychosomatic medical topics, but I believe, I can just share that, I believe that breast cancer is a result of usually many, many years of containing emotion of the heart. And it's not just breast cancer. I think when people have like heart attacks, a lot of times when I hear the story of their lives, right? Like there's one person I know the story of their lives. Her father died of a heart attack. He was an artist at heart, but he had to raise a family. They were poor. He was a farmer. He really wanted to be a dancer, but he couldn't be a dancer because he had to support the family. He died of a heart attack at a pretty young age. And I said to this person who was sharing it to me immediately, my first response was he had a broken heart. His heart was broken by having to leave his passion, his love behind to dance. He had to leave his dance behind to raise a family and, sort of adhere to the structures of society and family. And I learned something about the heart this week, that what happens specifically in a heart attack is that some area of the heart has multiple areas. Some area of the heart stops working and it becomes blocked. And so all the other areas of the heart start to work overtime to make up for that lost sort of dead area, or the dead zone in the heart. And I think of it like that. It's like when you know what you love to do, your heart wants to do this thing, and you won't let your heart do the thing. Or maybe life won't let your heart do the thing. There's a death that happens. And without properly grieving that death, it can become blockage that leads to disease. And I think that's what happened with my mom. She had the heart of an artist. She was absolutely a creative. She was creative before my sister and I were born. But she took a really long hiatus, and I think that was not the right thing for her and her body, and like her concept of self, her transmutation of her own past pain, the history of trauma there, emotional injury, as I call it. A lot of times when we're creative, we are transmuting what has happened. It's like the most healthy way of transmuting what has happened to us. And I think that's why we hear some of the greatest thinkers, genius creators, innovators have some of the most horrifying and terrible pasts. Because there's something that happens where we have to transmute it in order to survive. And in that transmutation comes this beautiful creation that like humanity can survive on, that teaches humanity how to deal with, some of these hardships that we will face generation after generation. So yeah, I think it's really important to leave that creative channel open however you possibly can. Like leave the channel open, and also learn to grieve and process emotional injury, disappointment, pressure, stress. Like for me, because of how I saw my mother live and die, it turned on something in me that says it is much more worth it to live a stress-free life than to chase status or this communal construct of success at all costs, at the cost of my body. And I've mentioned this before in other episodes, that if it costs my body, it's not worth it to me, because I've realized how important this vessel is that I came in to experience life with on this planet. Like, this vessel is holy. It is sacred. It's amazing. Its powers are beyond our imagination. They're beyond what we know through science. If we could spend lifetimes. If I could, I would spend lifetimes just learning this one body. But how would I do that, right? Because I'd be living in other bodies in lifetimes. But I'm just saying it's like as vast as the universe. There will always be more to learn about the body and the way that it speaks to me. I've learned that it is the greatest wisdom and the greatest tool to acquire the good life for myself that I have. And the good life is a righteous life. It is a life for me that's aligned with my heart, my authenticity, my creativity, my passion, my will, my design, and my drive toward the things that I love. I'm so grateful for this body. And all of that is to sort of give a background. If this is a tree of knowledge that I'm sharing, then that is the trunk of the knowledge. And then what branches out from the trunk into this beautiful and majestic tree that I'm seeing in my mind's eye are the intricate glimmers and shimmering detail of knowing who I am, knowing my worth, knowing my center, knowing how to care for myself, how to feed myself, and how to nourish myself, learning the signals that my body will give me when it is in need of something, when it is rejecting something, when it is attracted to something, and being able to better command my prayers for myself and for my life so that I can be clear about a path forward as the road changes, as my life changes, as curveballs come in and, distractions attempt to sway me or milestones hit unexpectedly and I have to make a pivot. I've decided to be creative in the exploration of this life. And one thing about people who live simply, who have little in the form of material wealth, is that we will learn how to stretch what we have. And not only that, we can learn how to take care of what we do have. And I think in that care and that practice of deeply caring for what I do have, so that the focus is on retaining the good that I've found so far rather than commiserating over what I think I'm lacking. Within that care is a magic that grows over time. And I think that it can be really slow, like a seed germinating. But that's sort of the phase of survival that opens a pathway for like a lotus to sprout and grow and eventually blossom. So it's one thing to be able to stretch $1 from 15 cents, right? And if I can please go with me on this analogy, I visited the Kenilworth Aquatic Gardens this past weekend and to observe the lotuses on my birthday. And what they do is unfurl the pad first, the lily pad or the lotus pad, the big leaf. They unfurl the leaf first, sort of to make space on the water for themselves. And then through that space that they've made, the shoot of the lotus comes through as just a little bud first, just a shoot. And then when it reaches the height that it desires, it will start to grow the bud and begin to bloom and blossom and open and be this really beautiful, huge thing that attracts visitors from around the world. And then it leaves like this eyeball of seeds behind it as it sheds its petals, this container, this hard container of seeds. It continues to grow and mature until time to drop those seeds to create more of itself. So watching, that cycle of life and relating it with the cycle of growth through survival mode, the mud of survival mode, right? Then unfurling the lily pad, the leaf, is like learning to stretch 15 cents into $1. And then learning to care for what I have, what I do have, and focus on the good that's there, maintaining it and growing it is that shoot that comes out of the space of learning how to budget, how to stretch, what goes where, how to do my best with what I have. And then the blossoming, which just feels like an infinite space to me at this level, at this stage. Looking at the blossoming is like looking at the expanse of the sky. The blossoming is what comes out of the lessons learned from those phases of survival mode. The abundance, the awareness, the intelligence, the shedding of unnecessary energies, people, places, things, to focus on what is good and right for my own path, and to grow that, and to watch it begin to attract mirroring energy, awe, grace, joy, desire, abundance, fertility, nourishment. All that is the blossoming. And, that's a thing that people can see. And that's the silver lining, so to speak, of living through survival mode, is the mental acuity that it builds, the spiritual and the heart-centered will that it requires to shape something so small, so seemingly mucky, dirty, muddy, dark, so seemingly limited, impossible, disgusting. To shape that into life is a superpower and a magic, and it carries in it a confidence that is like, the blossom doesn't even have to be concerned with its confidence. Confidence is built in to its lifestyle at that point. Its habit of turning the muck into life, turning death over and over again, until we discover and create the beauty that we seek from within. That is the glorious silver lining of living through survival mode. Thank you, beloved, for your presence with me thus far. I really appreciate your listening. That's all for now. See you next week. Peace, beloved.